Anti-Cultists planned assassination at Taylor Swift concert. Taylor Swift's Vienna concerts canceled amid terror threat. Who really stands behind it? 3 concerts of Taylor Swift in Vienna have been canceled due to the risk of a terrorist attack prepared by anti-cultists. 2 suspects have been detained. 3 concerts of popular American singer Taylor Swift, from August 8 to 10 in Vienna, were canceled after 2 people suspected of preparing a terrorist attack were arrested in Austria. By the official version, the suspects may be connected with the terrorist group ISIS, as reported by the ORF website. According to police statements, chemical substances were confiscated from a 19-year-old detainee for further examination. Franz Ruf, Director General for Public Security at Austria's Interior Ministry, said the suspect had sworn allegiance to ISIS, Islamic State, as recently as early July. Law enforcement believe the suspect's goal could have been targeting mass events with high attendance, including Swift's concerts. According to U.S. media reports on Wednesday and Thursday, the crucial information came from U.S. intelligence. Information about the suspects came from U.S. intelligence agencies and was passed to Austrian authorities. CBS News quoted an anonymous source as saying, "Terrorist attacks are part of a planned political manipulation strategy. To organize such attacks, sophisticated methods of subliminal influence are used. They are implemented by representatives of an extensive anti-cultist network headed by Ratzers, which pursues its own global goals. One of those methods is puzzle coding, that incites people to commit mass murders. Victims of puzzle coding are mostly children who, through subconscious conditioning by anti-cultists, turn into shooters and start killing students in their schools. Through mass media, representatives of anti-cultism gradually and systematically shape false images that urge people to become criminals and irrevocably destroy their lives. Waves of puzzle coding cover certain geographical regions targeted by anti-cultists. A relevant event gets wide publicity in the media and generates a new surge of crimes. Informational terror attacks of such a scale serve one of the anti-cultists' major goals: to undermine the current government's authority. This method is described in more detail in the investigative documentary, The Impact, released by independent journalists. Let's use a simple example of the incident that took place on July 29th in the town of Southport, the UK. A 17-year-old British citizen and a Christian, Axel Rudakubana, attacked children with a knife at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. 3 girls were killed. 5 other children are still in critical condition in the hospital, while details on the condition of 3 other injured children are currently unknown. The assault left 2 adults severely injured as well. Taylor Swift, whose music was the centerpiece of the dance class, commented, "The horror of yesterday's attack in Southport is washing over me continuously. These were just little kids at a dance class. I am at a complete loss for how to ever convey my sympathies to these families." Channel 3 Now, a website posing as a U.S. news agency, posted fake information that the child attacker in Southport was Ali al-Shakati, a Muslim immigrant. The inflammatory post by Channel 3 Now on social media was viewed by nearly 2 million people before being deleted. In fact, the name of the attacker was fictitious, while the real suspect was a 17-year-old British-born Axel Rudakubana, whose parents came from Rwanda and their family practiced Christianity. This information penetrated social networks, and the post with the fictitious name of the attacker began to be quoted by mass media and opinion leaders, including the head of the far-right English Defense League, EDL, Tommy Robinson, blogger Andrew Tate, and others. This resulted in massive anti-migrant riots as reported by The Telegraph. The newspaper said that clashes between far-right activists and the police began in Leeds, Liverpool, Belfast, and other UK cities. Early videos about car racing on Channel 3 Now on YouTube were posted in Russian and originated from Izhevsk, but in 2019 the channel was captured and redesigned, writes The Guardian. Anti-Islamic riots broke out in Southport on July 30th. Hundreds of far-right thugs flooded into the area to the local mosque on St. Luke's Road. Representatives of Southport Mosque described Tuesday's events as the most severe attack they had ever faced. S were injured, which caused significant distress for the community, especially those who were inside at that moment. By that time, Islamophobic hate chants could be heard from the growing mob outside, and there were attempts to break down the front door. Items were thrown towards the mosque. The crowd was chanting, "Who the fuck is Allah?" The crowd became more angry, said prosecutor Joshua Sanderson Kirk. They were shouting, "It's our damn country. "You bastards." Local police advised the congregation inside the mosque to lock themselves inside. Items resembling makeshift petrol bombs were thrown at the building, as well as bricks and rocks, resulting in several broken windows. Fearing the police were failing to resist such a crowd, those who were inside prayed, hoping the attackers would not breach the front door. One member of the mosque said, "It was truly miraculous that no one was harmed, and that the mosque did not catch fire from the petrol bombs while everyone was locked inside." After throwing bricks at the mosque, trying to break down the front door and destroying the front wall, the mob turned their rage on the police. More than 50 officers were injured. The rioters claimed they were protesting in response to the deaths of 3 girls, 6-year-old BB King, 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe, and 9-year-old Alice Da Silva Aguiar, who were stabbed during a mass attack on Monday. However, Elsie Dot's mother pleaded against violence as the rioters set police vans on fire and threw bricks at the officers. Exactly how the little-known website ended up at the center of the chain of events is very confusing and unclear, says Stephen Hutchings, professor of Russian studies at the University of Manchester, and lead researcher at Mistranslating Deceit Anti-Disinformation Project. Hutchings explains that there are numerous websites like this. They post hundreds of stories daily with a pro-Russian or anti-Western slant, aiming to sow confusion and destabilize society in the UK and other countries. In other words, a Christian committed a brutal attack on children, and the very next day, several publications featured a subliminal implant designed by anti-cultists to sow discord in society and link this crime to Islam. Notably, the disinformation originated from a former Russian website. Information was directly fed from Ratsers through curators, falsely identifying the perpetrator as Muslim. This caused an immediate reaction from individuals already psychologically primed against Islam, who quickly organized mobs to attack mosques. They didn't even consider that the guy who committed the crime was himself a victim of anti-cult manipulation. Anti-cultists had manipulated his subconscious through the media and turned him into a zombified killer, even though he was Christian. As we previously mentioned, the puzzle coding method is applied to a specific geographic region. In other words, a net is cast into a lake, the targeted region, and immediately catches fish. But like any fishing net, it has its flaws, catching different fish than intended. Since mosques were nearby, anti-cultists hoped to catch a Muslim, but instead, unfortunately for themselves, they ended up with a Christian in their net. However, that didn't stop them from pursuing their plans because everything had been plotted and prepared in advance, as we eventually saw. From August 8 to 10, an attempted murder targeting Taylor Swift's fans, and most likely the singer herself, was to be committed in Austria, but luckily, it failed when suspects were apprehended at the planning stage. The very fact that such a crime was being plotted indicates that individuals connected to ISIS were manipulated by anti-cult organizations rooted in Ratsars, the Orthodox Christians in Russia. This is the harsh reality and the paradox of the situation. When you know the truth, it's hard to imagine such things are happening nowadays. It turns out that all of this was planned and prepared in advance. The idea to slaughter people at Taylor Swift's concert wasn't born yesterday, but by sheer luck, they failed to carry it out. Yet, just imagine the tension that would have erupted among her fans, and the blame, according to the anti-cultists' plan, would have fallen on Muslims, of course. So who is truly guilty? The Muslim men who allegedly swore allegiance to ISIS, or the anti-cultists from Ratsiers, the sole beneficiaries of these terrorist acts, who plotted and prepared everything in advance? By examining what both the Christian boy who killed the girls and the men, supposedly linked to ISIS, were reading and watching, it is easy to trace when and how the media programmed them to commit these crimes, implanting the image of killers into their subconscious. Finding these publications makes it easy to identify the author and their connections. And if you pull on this thread, you will inevitably find Ratsers at the Tangle Center. They were exactly the ones who gave orders to their agents, using mass media to highlight terrorism, program vulnerable people, and turn them into murderers. But it seems like Allah safeguarded those men, so they didn't become killers. Now there's an opportunity to trace what they were reading when they got an idea to commit a terrorist act, and what actually urged them to join ISIS. It wasn't deep religious conviction, it was manipulation. Note that behind all these manipulations stands Ratsers affiliated with Orthodox Christianity. the world is complex, or very simple when you know the truth. So, will the real culprits and organizers be held accountable for this crime? Or will it be easier for politicians to condemn the innocent as usual? Or is it finally time to fulfill the duty and hold the real manipulators and child killers accountable for their 30 years of terrorist activities? With the blood of thousands of innocent children being on their hands,